GM everyone, and welcome to today's panel discussion on RWA investments for retail and everyday investors. And the real world asset tokenization is one of the most exciting topics in the finance today. And traditionally, investment opportunities and high value assets like real estate, private equity, and fine art were limited to high net worth individuals and institutions. But with blockchain technology, we're now witnessing this shift toward a greater accessibility, liquidity, and of course, inclusivity in these markets. So despite its potential, RWAs are still in very early stages. That's why we're here today to talk more about it, to spread awareness and talk about how exactly we can approach these opportunities. Because many retail investors are still unfamiliar with the concept, the challenges. Such as security, regulation, and then user experience, of course, which is the main barrier, in my opinion. So today we'll explore how we can bridge this gap and make these opportunities more accessible for everyday investors. And of course, we have here today a panel of industry experts that are going to help us navigate through these questions. Today, the first speaker is Oleg. He is the CEO of Binaryx, a leading platform that bridges traditional and digital finance. Hi, Oleg. How are you today?
Yeah, now we heard you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, guys, for coming today, and thank you so much, Anastasia, uh, for following that Twitter panel. Yeah, that topic today is really excited because there is a lot of questions which the people who invest in money directly into the projects and in RWA space seen by themselves, and it's always interesting what is opportunities we see looking for to start investing and their approach, how they are doing that. I will be glad to talk with you today too about the topic and discuss any potential things that can be improved and what market needs right now when we are talking about RWA space and where everything is going. Yeah, thank you so much for joining the Twitter panel, and let's start.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Oleg. Really looking forward to what you have to say today. Our next speaker is Ali. Ali is an award-winning author. He's a UN consultant and a senior blockchain fellow at INSEAD MBA. Ali, really excited to have you here today. I consider you a leader in the Web3 space, especially looking forward to hearing your thoughts on RWAs and how we can help drive this adoption to the space. Please, Mike, over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me here, and great to see so many people here on the line. Yeah, so my pleasure. So Ali here, managing partner at Blockchain Founders Fund. We invest in and help venture build top tier startups in the space. We've now backed over 200 startups, so a wealth of experience. And I was also one of the original advisors to a company called Polymath, which pretty much invented the term security token and sort of led a lot of what we're seeing today, but many years ago. And it's glad to see a lot of this starting to come to fruition and coming to the forefront of a lot of conversations and efforts.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. And our next speaker is Anton. Anton, how are you today? You're a Forex founder. Which company are you going to be representing today? Please let us know more.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and thanks very much for inviting me. I'm currently Chief Business Officer at Freedex, so it's a newly launched crypto exchange. I've been in the crypto space for 10 plus years. As you mentioned, founded several companies, very passionate about real world assets, about tokenization. As you have said, it's one of the biggest opportunities that the crypto industry has. And some big promises have been made, but as you said, we're still a bit uh, slowly getting there, let's say it like that, and looking forward to an awesome discussion today, how we can bridge that gap and bring closer and faster all of these opportunities, both to retail investors and to institutional investors.
Perfect. Guys, let's dive in. And before we do so, I'm just going to remind you that I'll be asking you questions. I'll be addressing questions to each one of the speakers. However, it doesn't mean that you were not able to speak on a specific question that you haven't received. Please raise your hand. You can see it in the panel below. You can use the reaction to do so. You're more than welcome to add on your opinion on a specific aspect of this panel discussion. I'm really looking forward to hearing a real discussion. So if you don't agree with the previous speaker, please say so. We like to find the truth, and it always lies somewhere in the middle. So really, really excited for this. Ali, let's start with you. One of the biggest promises of tokenized RWAs is, of course, accessibility, something that we mentioned in the intro of this panel. How do you see this innovation opening up the investment opportunities that were previously only available to high net worth individuals and institutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think one of the big innovations here that comes with RWAs is, to one, break down those barriers from, high net worths, like you were saying, or accredited investors to ideally being able to open it up to all investors, so that they can all participate in these types of products, with much smaller pieces. But when you start adding the masses with smaller pieces, it can become, very, very material. I think the second part to that I think is very interesting is opening up access across geographies. And by leveraging RWAs to allow individuals in all sorts of countries that may also have significant capital or maybe not significant capital, but to be able to also contribute, I think opens up a lot of doors. Now, of course, there's going to be challenges from a regulatory perspective still on this, because when you start adding in different requirements from KYC, AML, you might add geographical barriers as some of that exists right now. We'll see sort of what and how it shapes, but I think there's huge potential here to just open up to tremendous more capital, which means, you know, better access for everyone, better for, people that are looking for capital, but it's also better for the investors.
Thank you so much, Ali. Anton, what do you think? Do you believe retail investors are truly benefiting from RWA tokenization, or is it still mostly serving institutional players? The way that space looks now, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think the dream would be that retail investors benefit, right? Because all of us, when we think about investment opportunities, somehow we all feel that the wealthy, the big investors, they have an advantage over, an individual, right? So it's the dream for the retail to benefit there. I think the reality is that in this RWA space, it's still actually institutional investors who are actually deploying capital. So all of that TVL, AUM, however you want to call it, in the RWA space comes mostly from institutional investors. But what I want to add something there is that these institutional investors are predominantly actually already crypto native people or crypto native entities, right? So what I mean by that, it's not a traditional finance investor that goes around and buys these tokenized US treasuries, right? That have actually the most TVL in the RWA space. So why is it that it's actually a crypto native firm, and why is it not a traditional investor? Because traditional investor already has access to US treasuries and they don't need a tokenized form to do that. So for instance, if you're a big family office or if you're a big asset manager, you already have prime brokerage account or Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, or whoever it is, and through them, you can buy as much US treasuries as you want, and you don't need a token to get access to those. So it's really about, DAOs, projects who have big treasuries, crypto funds, hedge funds, proprietary trading firms, crypto market makers. These are actually the players who buy these tokenized RWAs, but then I mean predominantly tokenized US treasuries. And they're the ones who are accessing those products, and at the moment, less of retail. But I think the dream would be actually to enable this for retail. Again, this would have to be kind of crypto native retail, so it's people who know how to navigate the crypto space and maybe to offer them something attractive with a nice yield, with the less risk and less volatility than what you would get by buying Bitcoin or Ethereum or meme coins or all this other kind of crazy stuff that are part of the crypto madness.
But Anton, I completely agree with you. But for general crypto native retail investors, there's again so many assets. But if we were to talk about RWAs, how do RWAs compare in terms of returns against traditional savings account, real estate, and stock investments? If we were to, compare those versus, investing in like Bitcoin, does RWA really give those yields that are better than anything else?
You can never talk about yield without. You can never talk about returns without talking about risk, right? Because I've been before crypto. I was actually in the hedge fund industry, and you always, when you talked about higher returns that you would target for your investor, those come with higher risks, right? So obviously, yes, you can create products that offer higher returns, but then it's just you have to be aware that you're then exposing those investors, which would be retail investors as well, right, to higher risks, right? And yes, you can, I personally think we don't have such products we don't have such spectrum of products in the real world asset space, such that you have in the traditional finance, And I'll give you an example. Like I'm in UAE, I'm in Dubai. If I want to access a real estate market in Dubai, which is very, very hot, probably one of the hottest in the world, through RWAs, I'm quite sure I can't do that, right? But there's many, many banks here in UAE, many, many fintech service providers, neobanks that can offer me that with a click of a button, I invest into a certain product, that gives me exposure to Dubai real estate market. So I think in terms of also the spectrum of products or the depth of the products, we're still early stage, but I think you kind of flagged that at the beginning of the conversation. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anton. Ali, what's your opinion? I mean, hopefully everybody, if you're on this panel, you hopefully already understand that assets and ownership is the only thing that is going to eventually make you or bring you closer to the status of high net worth individual, and liquid cash is not as cannot compare to having assets. But what's your opinion on RWAs versus traditional savings account, real estate, and stock investments? Do you think somebody who chooses to invest in RWAs is winning more long term?
Yeah, I don't know if that's like exactly how I look at it now. Sort of explain sort of my rationale, right? So, I mean, if you were to say, look at RWAs consist of so many different asset classes, right? And so if you were to take like RWAs on the real estate industry, um, you could realistically just buy a REIT on the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ or whichever stock exchange, and there's probably REITs, so real estate investment trusts related to multiple different regions, countries, cities, whatever, right? That you can get exposure to. And like in reality, like the returns off of that are going to be essentially similar to if you were to buy, RWAs related to real estate on the same region with the same type of portfolio. So I think where RWAs are maybe more interesting is it starts to open up access because you can't access those stocks or those products from certain countries, certain regions effectively, right? And it is more of a barrier, and that tended to mean you needed to be a high net worth to then start getting access to those accounts or be a client with Goldman Sachs, et cetera, to then start to get certain types of access. And so I think the big thing is actually increasing the access, not for the crypto audience, right? Because that's, I don't think, the what we're going for here. I think it's actually opening it up for the broader audience so that instead of just having your, typical sort of borrowing, lending, and savings products that you'd have in your, bank, you now are opening it up to more products that allow you to drive yield effectively because of the diversity of opportunity, because of a better technology and a better way to sort of manage it, right? And so I think that's sort of the big thing that RWAs helps to open up.
Thank you so much. Oleg, you had a point, please.
Yeah, that's not more than point. That's more the problem that we are facing by ourselves right now. And I would like to ask for the opinion of Ali and maybe Anton about what they're thinking about how to resolve that problem. Because I fully agree with what Ali said that we need to onboard more Web2 audience. And on our own example, we right now have like more than 76% of the Web2 customers, but we start from idea of bringing just like Web3 audience, and we was in illusion that they will purchase the real estate with the tokenized shares. But then we faced the real world and understand that crypto audience is not interested in that. So we started boarding the like Web2 guys, and right now we are okay with that. But there is more complicated questions are coming from time to time. So in our case, for example, when we are tokenizing the real estate and building an infrastructure for it and allowing to other real estate developers, other like service providers and like not interested in company growth sites to list their properties on the platform and to tokenize their assets by themselves. So there is an illusion that exists in the minds of those like not just the real estate developers but anyone who plan to tokenize the assets, that they come and they can make more money on retail market or sell that asset more with the lesser discount, like with the better price for them. But then when they are facing with that idea and with that ideology, they facing the problem that nobody doesn't buy the real estate, or nobody doesn't buy the RWA assets like tokenized gold, tokenized diamonds, and a lot of other tokenized shit that have been tokenized for the last couple of years. And I saw a lot actually. And there is a question from my side, probably you understand right now the topic, how to create like what is the most important things, and how to create, in your opinion, the system or that will allow to list the assets that will be interested and efficient for the users for the retail market, and how to build that kind of approach to allow to users invest in just high quality of assets, because right now a lot of people trying to tokenize just the assets that have a low quality.
Thank you so much, Oleg. We have Michael joining the space. Michael, if you'd like to say a couple of words about who you are and what you do, we'll be happy to let you into the conversation.
Sure, hello everybody. I'm Michael, founder and CEO of Celeste. We are one of the leading institutional credit marketplaces in the digital asset space. Hey, Anton, nice to meet you. I might
Nice to see
just
you.
have actually a question, because I've been into the regulated RWA space like for, I guess, 10 years now around, also thanks to Anton. And I actually have a question to you, Ali. From my perspective, the access to the retail space, particularly through RWA, is not a technology issue, but primarily a legal and a regulatory issue to access actually the retail market. What, in your opinion, is changing RWA through basically the blockchain space to get basically better liquidity into the retail market? Because in the financial industry space, you could even securitize diamonds through any sorts of structured products. But like, what is the, let's say, the market-proof legal and regulatory side, and not just the technology in itself?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. That's what I was trying to allude to with my example around REIT, so real estate investment trusts, and what people are doing around like trying to tokenize real estate, right? At the end of the day, if you just wanted exposure to a REIT and you already had access to it and to real estate, you would just buy that REIT, right? And there's not really a fundamental difference right now, between the two. In fact, probably the REIT ends up cheaper because there's less stacked fees right now, given processes aren't digitized. And so the RWA side, in certain respects, might actually have all the same requirements, plus you now have the aspects around needing to tokenize and blockchainize it, right? And so I think where some of what you're talking about around access and liquidity and getting retail in, I mean, this is where I think like it's a challenge and a difference from say like an investment perspective for a venture fund, which is sort of my role and where I sort of see the industry going, right? So, when you look at guys like BlackRock and Larry Fink and how he's speaking about it, I mean, BlackRock would have a lot of influence, as they launch these products to very easily add them into the portfolio of retail um, that essentially are their customers. Um, and that's a lot easier way to then go fill those products, push those products, and the technology itself is better and facilitates better, but you probably already have in a lot of countries, not all, a lot of countries where they would basically be leveraging and using these products through existing infrastructure. So invest in existing banks that already sell products, et cetera, that then have their customers, which would then be retail, be able to subscribe to these, and the technology underlying it is all a lot more effective. Um, for for these lower quality, because I've seen a lot of this as well, these lower quality products that I think people are trying to tokenize, digitize, and sell is, I think, one, difficult, and two, not so scalable, right? In reality, because it's not necessarily, they don't necessarily have the channels to push them. Some of the things that I'm personally more interested from like a tokenization standpoint that I'm hearing less about for RWAs is how do you go tokenize, some, and you'd have to partner with institutions for sure, but how do you go tokenize, for example, like the debt and debenture market, which are, you know, very, very large markets, much more standardizable than say like individual properties for real estate, that I think is like a huge, huge opportunity to then also help get more retail into some of these things. And you see it in, a lot of countries where retail does end up going and buying a lot of like government bonds, government debt, or municipal debt, et cetera. Japan's a really good example. And being able to increase and open access to these types of things, I think is more interesting and effective. Um, Given we're seeing a lack of demand or continuing lack of demand from institutions on like continuing to sell some of these things. So like I think that is an interesting area that will be tokenized, and like we're talking about multi-trillion-dollar markets. Um, but I do agree sort of in the premise that you had on that question.
Thank you so much, guys. Love this conversation that's happening. I just want to take one step back since today we're talking to retail investors, actually, and I'd like to bring it down to step one. Let's talk about the entry points of retail investors, and the entry points are normally platforms. Do you guys think that these platforms are easy enough for everyday investors to understand and access RWAs, or is it completely still a major barrier and it's complex? And maybe I'd like to hear Oleg's opinion on it since you're actually running a platform like that. Oleg, if you could share your opinions on the biggest obstacles that you
Yeah,
hear from people. Yeah, thank you.
I have a problem with connection. Maybe could you repeat please the question?
Yes, of course. I'm talking about the entry point for everyday investors to get into RWAs, and the entry point is, of course, the platforms. What is the biggest feedback that you get in terms of the pain points that people are experiencing in order to enter the RWAs?
Yeah, actually, that's really good question, and it's not about the most in the cases. It's not about just feedback, but it's more about how you speak with your customers and you trying to solve the problems what they have and trying to remove them. But there is not so much feedback from them. And most of the cases, what you're trying to solve when you have like any kind of the platform or any kind of the business, you're trying to launch the business, you're trying to run it, and you're trying to do your best, and then you create in some kind of ways what bring the more customers to you, and the more customers start using your product. Of course, like in the most cases that come in from idea to like from idea to bring the more user-friendly experience to the customers, and that's true. They want to have no problems of joining into the product, and they don't have they shouldn't have like hard way to do that. And for example, we create on our side account abstraction way how when like traditional web 2 customers and Web2 investors can start investing in the with our product easily without any problems with registration through email. And a little bit later, we add some payment gateways, on ramp, off ramp solutions, and all that stuff. But most of the people still doesn't know what is blockchain is. Most of the people still is not familiar with the USDT and so on. Maybe they hear about Bitcoin, like, but they never own it, and that's more about technology acceptance level in the most cases. And in the most cases, the technology acceptance level right now is really low, unfortunately. And everyone right now looking for the way how the blockchain technology can be accepted faster, and how the people can start working with it, with the blockchain technology better. But we need to understand that it's like with the internet. For example, when I was a schoolboy, the internet at my hometown was appear in 2000, 2006 or 2007, and but it was invented in 1992. So that's why, and that's kind of example that given to us understanding that right now the more infrastructure is built, and in that time the infrastructure for the internet is not exist in all places. So in the most of the cases right now, we need to wait for the technology acceptance, but not just the wait, but trying to create more simple way, more understandable way, more common way how the people can use the blockchain technology or the products based on the blockchain technology without even knowing that they are using the products on the based on the blockchain technologies. So that's the best way how to bring the mass adoption, in my opinion. That's the best way how to onboard more users and bring the retail market, because the entrepreneurs and the guys who are trying to do more effort and to want to make more money, of course they will jump into some areas first, and they always try to they will always find the way how to make that money. So that's really important topics and really important things. And for example, in my opinion, right now, we just need to show on the real cases what is the benefits of blockchain technology given to the assets and to the real world. And for example, from our side right now, we try to adopt even the customers who have like more than $100,000 and explain to them why for them it's more profitable to invest in RWA assets and the tokenized real estate than buy the one piece of the real estate for themselves, and for the investments, because that bring a lot of opportunities and possibilities. But I will be honest with you that like the way that we go through it took more than like 2 years, and it took a lot of effort, a lot of things. And in my opinion, that what helping to us to come to that point. It's just ideology that we just need to transfer the processes from the real world on the blockchain and show the whole transparent and traceable way and asset life cycle on the blockchain. And I think when the more projects who would like to share the ideology of the blockchain too will appear, and they try to implement the real use cases, then the technology acceptance level will grow. Of course, I agree with the guys that and with the Ali that the big institutional players are already accepting the technology level, but it's not about retail, right? It's not about like regular lazy people, regular retail investor, but all of us, we understand that market, and this is the second thing that we need to understand, that the market, given the opportunities and possibilities just for the people who are like bringing more effort. Of course, the people who will not bring an effort, even in RWA space, they will make less money than other investors or than other market participants. But those who are bringing like study better and who are learning better how the technologies works, and of course will make more money. But the main point is to save that ideology of the transparency, of the traceability, of the accountability of the assets on the blockchain and the all blockchain things that blockchain brings to the world with the Bitcoin.
Thank you so much, Oleg. Really good point. Completely understandable in terms of retail investors not really, I mean, being technology being a blocker, but let's also face another elephant in the room, regulations, especially with the news that are coming out more and more, something like USDT being delisted from major exchanges and everything that's following with that. Regulations around tokenized assets are constantly evolving. Let's put it in that way. What should retail investors really know about compliance when investing in RWAs? What is it that they should be aware of? What is it that we can tell them in order to calm them down a little bit? Because it is a massive thing. Ali, maybe you could share it and then Anton following.
Yeah, no, of course, regulation is a big aspect. And to be honest, I mean, even with existing products, if there was a huge want and need to continue to open up access, they would, right? And they have to certain respects. I mean, you can invest in, New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ from a lot of countries, not all countries, but from a lot of countries. And of course, in a bunch of countries, you need certain networks or, to be able to access certain brokers that allow you to then execute on that. So I think the tokenization helps make it easier, but if regulators still want to limit access to certain things, they still will, right? And the example that I probably use is, we've got over 1 billion people on the planet that don't have access to even basic borrowing, lending, and savings products and like basic banking, right? And that's not an accident, right? It's essentially a choice because those users aren't going to drive strong financial returns, right? And so they're basically cut out of the financial system. And it's not, in my mind, a mistake, but blockchain creates the ability to basically now leapfrog with those users to be able to access borrowing, lending, and savings products much more effectively, right? So that's a lot of the power that you see that blockchain has to drop that cost basis dramatically to then serve those customers, in which the traditional financial system, brick and mortar, et cetera, would struggle to do and has struggled to do. So I think regulation is still going to be regulation. Like if real estate products are banned from foreign investment, as it is in a bunch of countries right now, as an example, and foreign ownership, then that would continue to happen regardless if it's tokenized or not. And same with as you go down the list, if you're saying like government debt is open to certain types of investors and certain not, even if it was tokenized, would be the same problem, right? So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. It has the ability to have more access, but of course, there has to be the regulatory want to do that as well.
Thanks a lot. Anton, something on your side, maybe?
Yeah. So, I mean, when it comes to retail investors, my personal opinion is that we should not have high expectations that the retail investor has the capacity or the time or the will to do, serious due diligence on the products, But from my experience, many times retail investors assume that everything is in order with those products when they get with financial products when they get access to them from their bank or to a platform or so on. So I see it easier as a way forward to have that burden on the platform. And I'll give you like a very beautiful example here in UAE, in United Arab Emirates. We have a neobank called VIO Bank, so WIO Bank. I mean, I'm not promoting them or anything. I'm just giving an example. And they're actually a neobank. They don't have access. They don't have a banking license themselves. They actually use from another well-established bigger bank. But they have a beautiful, user experience. It's basically just an app. It's not a bank where you can go into their office or talk to someone. It's just kind of like this beautiful neobank style application with a beautiful user interface, where at the click of a button, you can invest into various products. And they have had amazing success here in the UAE. Like really, they're the superstar of this kind of fintech scene, this neo banking scene. And really, their added value was that they made this amazing experience for the user. You onboard to that bank within a couple of minutes. It's all fully digital on your phone. You can easily get access to many, many different products around the world. Obviously, where you don't have restrictions, or constraints. This is something that Ali was alluding to. And they have they really have like they're a superstar. I mean, they're doing amazing. And if you think about it, like what's their added value? What's their USP? Like what's their special about them? It's simplicity and amazing user experience. That's basically what it is. And they have great marketing because that's how they actually acquire clients. So I think this is maybe where we can actually, get some inspiration for the Web3 space. I mean, in the end, it's about getting the clients. The client doesn't care about blockchain. I mean, we all repeat it all the time. I know it's like, I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times, but clients don't care about the tech. Like literally, they do not care about the tech. They want amazing products in a simple, easy to use way, fast. They want trust. They want security. And if you offer them, then you win. And I know that I just kind of created maybe more challenges, by saying that, but this is really the way forward for the Web3 space and RWA space to win over retail user, in my perspective.
Thank you so much, Anton. Michael, let's move over to you. In your opinion, the education for retail investors about RWAs, whose responsibility is it? Should it fall on projects? Should it fall on regulators? Should it fall on any other financial institutions? What's your best bet?
Whoa, Anastasia, I'm actually here working in the meeting. I'm just listening. So if I may, please point over to Ali and Anton, the expert, and Oleg here. You caught me off
Of
guard
course,
now.
of
I'm
course.
sorry.
No problem at all. Guys, maybe anybody else who is willing to volunteer to answer this question?
Could you repeat again?
Yes, of course. Whose responsibility should it be? Who should we call out? Projects, regulators, or financial institutions in terms of educating retail investors about RWAs?
Yeah, actually, that's the responsibility of the retail investors by themselves, if to be honest. But yeah, but let's see the truth, right? The interested part, who is like making money from some kind of things, should educate their customers how the product are works, what the products are bringing to the community, what are the benefits they have, and so on. So that's just the way how it works. Unfortunately, we can talk about like that institutions should educate the retail investors, or regulators should educate it, but it's not the way how it works in the real world. So I'm not really fan of it. And of course, just the people who are targeting their audience with their products should explain how the products are works, and explain it in a simple way, and give that kind of deep dive stuff, just mm, just for the users who would like to learn more. But for the most of the users, it doesn't make any sense. The more important questions that Anton in previous on previous question touch, that is like who should be responsible for the like compliance, due diligence, and all that stuff, and the regulations of the products that are listed on the platforms, and how to build that process, how to make the like the issuers to be responsible for the assets that they're issuing. So that's more important topic for, in my opinion, at that moment, than
Thank you
just
so
education.
Thanks a
Yeah.
lot, Oleg.
Yeah, I will explain why. So sorry, Ali. Yeah, because when you build the really simple thing that understandable for everyone, so the people don't need to educate a lot, and that's the way how it should works. That's just Anton mentioned. But the other topics is more important: how to make investors and everyone safe, and how to create the rules that will make safe the all sides, and remove from that chain the guys who want to make bad things. Yeah.
Ali, if you could yield the
Yeah.
floor.
Yeah, no, so I think there's a couple of parts to this, right? And I think this industry, well, it's been a challenge, right? Because, while there's been in some ways, I'm a very big believer in self-regulation and the customer retail needing to go, do their research and go learn a lot on their own. It is difficult for a lot of people. And this industry, it's been a bit of a mess sometimes, right? Like if you look at the last cycle, we ended up being pretty successful in getting a lot of people into centralized finance products. Now they weren't decentralized. People didn't really fully know the difference. Then we had implosions of Celsius, BlockFi, FTX, etc. Right? And this is a big problem. And so like one of the big things that we need, and I know earlier it was even alluded to like a lower quality products that are RWAs, like we need to almost set a gold standard. Like we need great quality products that are basically tokenizing. We need world-class standards around audits and processes around making sure the assets are there, the assets are legitimate, there's trusted, methods that are already set up in the traditional financial world to help make sure that like customers and retail are protected, right? And this is where then it starts to allow retail to come into these products much, much more effectively. And when you see the institutions approach this like BlackRock, like that's kind of the way that they're thinking. And if we're going to go be successful doing it in this industry, we need to uphold those very high standards. And then realistically, it's going to be, platforms in different countries that already have, users and audiences. And there's, of course, going to be new ones that emerge as well. But, think about like exchanges now adding this as a different type of product. Obviously, maybe very different from a lot of crypto returns and potential, but going to be dramatically lower risk, much more stable, especially if the stuff's audited and transparent. And there are examples in the crypto industry of like, world-class standards and process. Of course, Coinbase is there. Circle's got incredible reporting. You see with a few of the stable coins with just like world-class level reporting. And we almost need like that level of reporting standardization to be able to go drive this, whether the, companies or products are public or not. It's that level of transparency that then allows retail to trust these products actually have a lot lower risk. And then I think you start to see more adoption across these products in different countries.
Thank you so much, Ali. Um, Guys, if you're visiting our space for the first time, normally as the last question of this panel, we like to take out a crystal ball and give our projections in terms of what's going to happen to RWA market. And today I'm going to ask you what, in your opinion, should happen in order for tokenized RWAs to become an investment of choice for everyday investors. Do you guys see any breakthroughs that should happen in the next few years in order to make RWAs there at the top of a choice? I'm not addressing it to anyone specifically. Just if you have an opinion, you can raise your hand.
I think Ali has already mentioned it like we need to create the world class standard of the reports and the ways how it works. We need to create some kind of consortium of the projects that work together with the one high standards, and just that bring the market to the point when the regulators will come after that and try to make that regulations. But if everything will be good in the from that point, of course, will be no so strict regulations about that kind of things. So it's like associations of the RWA projects that create in such kind of standards and that create in such kind of opportunities. That's in my opinion.
Thanks a
But
lot.
I'm agree with the Olive.
Thanks a lot, Ali and Oleg. Anton, do you have anything to add on your side?
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of add very optimistic, very positive, that we have a really a great opportunity. RWAs, I mean, this is the biggest, yeah, this is the biggest opportunity that we have as a Web3 crypto industry to bring something to the masses. And Ali and Oleg really, they have explained very well where we kind of need to move forward, where we have some gaps. But also to emphasize, like, it takes time, right? I mean, crypto, Bitcoin, when it started, like in 2010, 11, I mean, it looked very funny for for a long time period, right? And not that many people could imagine that one day you will have BlackRock, you will have the world's biggest investors, deploying serious capital in this industry. So we also have to be mindful that it takes time. Like everything that's good takes a long time. And I don't have you said to take out my crystal ball, and make some projections. I think still, RWA space is going to be small in the next couple of years, but to hit those trillions of dollars of tokenized assets that everybody's projecting, I think we have a long way ahead of us, and regulation makes it challenging. It doesn't make it easy, right? But we can win if we create an amazing experience for the end user. Then we can win. But without that, in today's age, like, it will not fly, from my experience.
Thank you so much for all of your insights today, guys. It's clear that tokenized RWAs have immense potential. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of education, security, and of course, the regulatory clarity to bring these people into the mainstream adoption. And to our audience today, thank you so much for providing your interest and energy into this discussion. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your time. And if you're interested in learning more, be sure to follow our panelists and stay engaged on our social media. We'll be here not next week, but the week after that, since we're all going for Paris Blockchain Week. If any of you guys are coming, we'll be happy to speak to you. Drop your message in the comments to this panel. We'll be happy to talk. And thanks again to our speakers. Thank you so much for joining, and until the next time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you. Bye bye.